God is such an awesome God. He's so gracious and merciful, and He always has a plan of deliverance for us. Even when we stray, He always has a plan to bring us back and to deliver us, and because He loves us. And that's what I love so much about God. And it is such a blessing to be in a position of being called by God. And when God calls you, He created you first of all, so He knows what you're capable of. But when He calls you and when He sends you, He empowers you and He gives you everything that you need to accomplish the mission at hand. So you never have to be afraid. You never have to doubt what God is calling you to do, because if God is the one who is sending you, you will always come out victoriously. And as always, I am so glad to have you here for the Sanctuary Sunday School, powered by the Sanctuary Academy. And I'm so pleased because I did get a chance to actually talk to some of our Sanctuary Academy members. I did a webinar last week, the Rebound webinar. I'm going to be doing 2.0, but the Rebound webinar, and I got a chance to actually talk to some of the people, and you guys just made my heart so glad. And I was thinking of doing more things like that where we're interactive, where not only are you commenting and I'm commenting, or we can live chat, but I actually want to hear your voices and have video streams. So YouTube has opened up some more opportunities for me. I'm working through that because I like people and I like live interaction. So it would be so great to actually see you and talk to you via video. And then even at some points, I'd like to do somewhat of a Sunday school tour and come to different places. So if you'd like to have me come to your church and address your Sunday school, that would be absolutely wonderful. I wanted to start traveling this year, but so much was happening with the pandemic and the quarantine, so we'll see. But I'm looking forward to interacting with you on a more personal level. But this week's lesson is one of my favorites, and it is about the call of Gideon. And we're in the book of Judges. And right here, as you've heard me say before, in the beginning of the 6th chapter, it says, "And again, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, which caused them to be defeated by the Midianites." And that's very important, because we don't want to come across like, oh my goodness, people just picking on these poor people, they're children of God. Why isn't God protecting them? That's not the case. God did protect them and He did provide for them. But every time that they would sin, they would have to be punished, because there is always a consequence for sin. And that in and of itself is a lesson for us, because when we do things, it brings consequences. So when we're dealing with consequences of our own actions, we don't want to say that God has forsaken us and left us and can't take care of us. That's not true. You know, when I was little, or when I was teaching Sunshine Band, we would do the song, Jesus be a fence all around me every day. And I would tell my kids, Jesus is a fence around you and He's protecting you. But when you jump the fence, then you're in problems. So you have problems. So let's stay inside that fence. So let's talk about Gideon. And we're looking here at this 11th verse, and it talks about the angel of the Lord coming to Gideon, and he was out under the oak tree, and he was out there, and he was it says he was thrashing wheat on a wine press. And the reason for that was because the Midianites had not only whipped them, but impoverished them so, and drove them out of their land up into the mountains. So he was not able to thresh wheat on a threshing floor. He had to do it in a wine press, because what would happen is, as soon as they would do something, or thresh some wheat or harvest a crop, the Midianites would come in and grasp it up and take it from them. So we see he was doing this on a wine press, so that they could be able to have food. And he was there and he was hiding. And I love this because the angel of the Lord came in and addressed Gideon as mighty man of valor. Now take a man he has been driven up into the mountains, and he's trying to sneak and thresh wheat for bread for his family. But God called him a mighty man of valor. I love that verse, because God addresses you by who He created you to be, not by your circumstances. And this verse personally touches me, because you have what they call imposter syndrome or self-doubt. How can I go? I'm not fit. I'm not qualified. They're not going to listen to me. But God determined who Gideon was. God called Gideon. So if God has called you, it doesn't matter what people might call you. It only matters, the only thing that matters is what God calls you. And this angel of the Lord addressed Gideon as mighty man of valor. And he said, the Lord is with thee. And then, Gideon's response, he's like, well, what do you mean the Lord is with me? If the Lord is with me, then why am I going through this? Why are my people suffering? What's going on? How can God be with me? What happened to the God that delivered the children out of Egypt and all of these great things I heard about? Where is he now? What do you mean he's with me? He has forsaken us. He's not with us, was Gideon's response. And that goes back to the first verse that I referenced, because Gideon didn't understand that no, God did not forsake you. You forsook God. And that's why you're in this situation. I'm going to say that again, because some situations don't come about because God forsook us. It came about because we forsook God. And when you forsake God, you place yourself in very difficult positions that you don't have to be in. But we see in this lesson that God is so gracious and he's so merciful and he's so loving until he will deliver you out of a situation that you put yourself in. And I just love God for being that kind of God. And so he said, he told him, and he said, well, what is this? And so that's when the angel told Gideon that God has sent you to deliver his people. And again, Gideon is going, wait a minute. My family doesn't have any money. I'm called, and my family already poor, and I'm the least in my poor family. So how am I going to be the one who is going to deliver the children of Israel? And so then that's when he asked God for a sign. And this right here is something that is an important lesson, because God is sovereign. He knows everything and we should obey him, but we can't communicate with him, and he will provide signs when we need them. There have been times when I've had to ask God to say, okay, I need confirmation, God. Make sure that I know, because I want to make sure that I'm doing what you want me to do, because I'm not going without you, without your direction. And so he asked him for a sign. And so Gideon went in and he prepared a gift and he went out and he had a gift of a kid skin, the flesh of a kid. And he also had some unleavened cakes, and he went in and he put it in a basket under the tree. And when the angel touched it, it caught on fire, and the fire consumed the flesh of the kid, and it also consumed the unleavened bread. And that's when Gideon knew that this was truly an angel and that he was from God. And I love this part right here, because then it says that the altar of Baal, I'm going to actually read this verse to you. I got my Bible. I'm sitting here with my Bible, and I'm doing Sunday school this way today. It says, and when the men of the city arose early in the morning, behold, the altar of Baal was cast down, and the grove was cut down that was by it, and the second bullock was offered up on the altar which was built. So once Gideon understood that this was God calling him, and he went, and the one true and living God who was going to deliver them, he went and he threw down the altar of Baal and cut down the grove, the wooded area that was around it. So then when they saw it, they started to ask, well, what happened? Who did this? And they told them, they said, Gideon did it. And so now the men were upset, and they're going to go find Gideon, because Gideon cast down their God. He took their God down and cut down the grove the grove that was around it. And then it says that Joash said, wait a minute. Baal is a God, right? So why are you going to go and plead for a God? If he's a God and this man cast him down, then you let him fight against Gideon, and you leave Gideon alone. And of course we know that Baal was an idol god, and Gideon was called by the one true and living God. So he was not able to do anything against Gideon. And Gideon began to build his army to fight to deliver God's people. And before he got ready to actually go notorious, he went back to God and said, God, I have another sign, as he wanted to make sure. And I love this. He asked him, he said, okay, I'm going to take a fleece, and I'm going to put the fleece out tonight. He said, and when in the morning, I want the dew to only be on the fleece and no dew anywhere else. Okay. And sure enough, God did that. And so Gideon came back and said, okay, God, one more time. He said, now I'm going to reverse this thing. He said, I'm going to put the fleece out, and this time let the fleece remain dry and the dew be everywhere else. And this was something, that it was such a powerful thing how God, he granted Gideon's request. And this makes 3 signs that he gave him where Gideon knew that God was with him. And once Gideon knew that God truly sent him and God was really with him, he was fearless and he was able to go into this battle. And we know the battle, which will be next Sunday's lesson. So I'm not going to go any further than this in the story. But just to stop right here and understand that, especially now in the day we live in now, before you go, make sure God called you. Before you go, make sure God sent you. Never go off on your own, of your own doing. And definitely don't allow the enemy to trick you into doing anything. So these signs that Gideon asked for, don't look at it as him doubting God. I look at it as him making sure that he was being called by God, that it wasn't Gideon sending himself, or that it wasn't his people pushing him out there to do this, that it was truly God sending him. And we know that it in fact was the call of Gideon. This is such a beautiful story. And it's funny because I encounter so many people. Maybe it's because I have a call on my life. I encounter so many people who have the call of God on them and they're running from it. You can't run. Gideon was all the way up in the mountains hiding, threshing his wheat by the wine press, hiding, and God found him. And God recognized him as what? A mighty man of valor. When whoever God has called you to be, I might not recognize it. Your family may not recognize it. Your friends may not recognize it. People on your job might not recognize it. But God knows what he's put in you. And when the time has come, he will call it out of you and be willing to accept the call and do whatever it is that God has called you to do. And as we used to say in testimony service, and be what the Lord is calling me to be.